Hey, welcome again to another edition of The Third Rail. We have a special guest today. I think it's going to be a great program. I am pleased and honored to have as my special guest Mr. C.J. Wallace. Mr. Wallace is the Regional Field Director for the John Birch Society. So we are going to learn today a little bit about what the John Birch Society stands for and what their involvement is in politics and other areas of American life. CJ, welcome to the program.
Hello, Dave. Thank you so much for having me on. We appreciate the work that you're doing. I remember an image. I think it's the image of your podcast here. It says, "The truth is shocking."
Yes, it
Looking at it
is.
right now, and it is. So we are loving the truth. And man, you can ask whatever you need to get the point across that the truth is shocking. So
So, are we going to be shocking some people today?
I think we're going to be shocking some people today.
That's that's good. That's good. We like to shock people. People
Okay.
don't like truth, do they?
No, no, unfortunately, no.
No, they don't. So, before we begin, for those who are not, or maybe have only heard a warped opinion about the John Birch Society, Mr. Birch himself was a Christian missionary to China years ago. Can you just give us a brief history on how he evolved that ministry into the John Birch Society?
Absolutely. So, John Birch, as you said very correctly, very well said, he was a Christian missionary to China. And the work that he did in China to, just to put it succinctly, made sure that people knew who he was. And not only that, but knew who the Lord was, right? He was a missionary, but he did it in a way that cohesively and very relevant information was communicated to the Chinese in a way that they flocked to him. There were 700, I believe, 700 to 800 men that helped him build an airstrip for supplies during, of course, the war that was going on, World War II. And the things that he was doing over there were just very uncanny. So this led to Robert Welch actually looking into his file and wondering why no one knew about this man, John Birch, the things that he was doing over there in China. And so he said, I'm not going to allow this man's name to go off in infamy or to go off in space and oblivion. So he said, I'm going to ask his parents if I can use his name for the society that I'm going to create. So that's how the John Birch Society got the name.
So, now who is Mr. Welch?
Right, Mr. Welch is the founder of the John Birch Society. Right, Robert Welch. He was
Okay.
actually the guy who came up with the sugar daddies, sugar babies. That was the man, Robert Welch.
You mean the candy?
The candy, yes, he was a
Really?
candy store owner. Yep, sure was.
Well, that's fantastic. That is
And then he
fantastic.
saw what was happening with the conspiracy and was like, "Man, I have to do something about what's going on in America." So,
All right. So, let me ask you this. It's, John Birch Society is a conservative organization that's based on the constitutional principles. Would that be a fair statement?
I definitely understand why you would say conservative, but that word, man, it has gotten ruined over the years, right? And so
Right.
we'd like to call ourselves Americanists because we stick to what the founding fathers have actually outlined for us. And so you can definitely say conservative, but we say among ourselves Americanist. But you're right,
Yeah. Forgive me for using that
conservative.
word. I understand
No, it's
exactly what
okay.
you're saying.
It's okay.
So,
I understand.
yeah. So, having said that, I'm sure our viewers are interested and in how that a black man such as yourself got involved. It's definitely not the norm as we see in America generally. There are exceptions. Now I don't. I think of course of Candace Owens. I don't think she would be probably anywhere close to being uh, American enough for maybe what John Birch stands for, but she is in many areas conservative. And how did you get involved with the John Birch Society?
Well, I tell you what, in the year 2020, I think it was around March 2020, my job, I was actually working in IT at the time on post here. And they said, unless you get this injection, you're not going to be working here anymore. Now, you got to understand, I was in the military, so I'm used to vaccines, right? I got vaccines growing up. I didn't think it was a big deal. And I know in the military, you don't really have a choice. So we
Right.
did it without question. But here we had a choice. I was a civilian, right? Contractor at the time. And I really was confused as to what was going on. So I looked deeper into how I can actually have uh, my job and still not get this certain vaccine, right? And I found a lady by the name of Peggy Hall out of Orange County, California. She was helping people with the exemptions, yeah, with the religious accommodations. So I got her material, was able to present it to our HR, and I didn't have to take the vaccine, right? And they were like, okay, CJ, well, now that you've given us your religious accommodation, you don't have to take it anymore. And all of a sudden, it went away. A week later, you didn't have to take it. And so when I looked at that, I said, well, wait a minute. First it was mandatory, and now you don't have to take it. There was just something weird about the whole thing. And so I started listening to folks who were up in the freedom movement. R.W. Malone was one of them. The creator of the mRNA vaccine technology was saying, I don't know about what the government is doing. Now, for a creator of something to say that they don't know about what the government is doing with the vaccine technology, that was very concerning to me. So I started digging some more and I started uncovering lie after lie after lie that the certain parts of our government were involved in. And I said, "Oh my goodness, it's deeper than I thought." To make a long story short, I met one of the field coordinators at the time online. Actually, I was looking all over the place, Dave, because I was concerned. And when I looked at this certain area on JBS at the bottom of the screen, I saw this lady. I said, I got to contact her and see how I can push back tyranny in my region, in my county. I called her up. She said, listen, talk to this lady over here, Miss Camacho. She lives in Sierra Vista as well. She's a chapter leader here. Guess what? I did it, and I've got connected ever since. So it was the 2020 injection mandate, which isn't really a mandate, right? It's an edict because
Mm.
the executive branch, the legislative branch, they can't issue mandates. That's only for the court. And for the courts, they are telling a lower court or an inferior court, you have to do this. And that's called a writ of mandamus. But I found all these things out by searching for the truth, and I got to them.
Wow, that's quite a story. So you were stationed down at Sierra Vista,
Yes,
yeah,
sure was.
Fort Huachuca.
But what you got? That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Did some service calls down there years ago. Um,
Okay.
yeah, it was interesting time. I was probably within 2 weeks of losing my job because I refused. And I believe it was a Supreme Court opinion that came out, something to do with the Marine Corps, that reversed all of that. And it stopped it. And it saved me from having to lose my job at that time. So it was a trying time for people that had principles. It really is. A lot of people suffered because of it. So, well, I appreciate you, CJ, sharing that story. about how you got involved with the John Birch Society. From my perspective, I years ago I went and heard a man in San Bernardino, California, speak at a restaurant in a conference room. His name was Alan Stang. Have you ever heard of Alan Stang?
I have heard of Alan Stang, yes.
Right. I've got the book here. It's very simple, and I heard him. I don't. This was prior to email and internet. I don't even remember how I found out he was speaking, or how I even knew who he was. But somehow I did. This particular book that I just showed you, I purchased from a John Birch bookstore up north of Yucaipa, California. And of course, that I'm sure that store's way long gone. But I've got, just to give you some of my roots, I've got this book here. Western Islands is the publishing branch of the society, correct?
It sure is. Yes,
Yeah,
it
so I've
sure
got
is.
this one here, sort of a collectible about Ted Kennedy. And then I've got, of course, this one. This was about one of Birch's favorite subjects we'll talk about here, The Fearful Master, about the UN. And then this was
Yes.
a unique book published by a lady who was an undercover agent at the FBI called I Testify. And I
Ooh.
think I've got a few other books. But as far as Mr. Stang goes, now I lost track of him for years, and I can't tell you when it's been since we've lived here. But he became back in the news somehow through the internet, and I got involved with him. I have a couple of his other books that he self-published. I think he passed away maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, but he was a brilliant voice for the movement. So much appreciated his writings. So I just want to go through, and I'm on the John Birch Society website, and I'm going to post the links to this, and I'm going to show a couple of the pages as we're speaking here. But I want to just go through the action projects. Now, back years ago, I went to probably my first meeting was when we lived in Reno, and I went to a Birch meeting. Again, I can't even remember how I found out that they were there. How the meet? I have no idea. How did we communicate before the internet? I don't know. I don't remember. But
Right.
so the one thing back then, and I'm gonna skip on the list, but was their involvement with to get the United States out of the United Nations. Can you explain to our audience why that would be important?
Absolutely. So the United Nations, if you look up its beginnings, you had characters such as Alger Hiss. You had characters such as Joseph Stalin. You had people that had plans that weren't really American plans, so they weren't representative of the United States and what we stand for. And I saw a brilliant presentation on the United Nations Charter, Dave, that I actually recommend that people keep an eye out for. I had never seen it before, but this presentation brought out the differences between the United Nations Charter and the US Constitution. If you look at the very beginning, the preamble of it, you'll see that we, the peoples of the United Nations. Now, that sounds kind of like we, the people of the United States, right? However, when they mention the term peoples, they don't mean individuals. That's why they said peoples. And if you look further down, you'll see who actually has the power within the United Nations. And it's the Security Council, which are made of the five nations, powerful nations. Um, that sounds like an oligarchy, doesn't it? And if you're
Hmm.
looking at Agenda 2030, maybe in your town it's called Comprehensive Plan 2040. They're willing to implement the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which will include you not having property. Now, granted, when they speak, you'll think it's the best thing in the world. Man, they want to solve poverty. They want to make sure everybody eats. Right? They want to make sure that all of these things, pollution, climate change, they don't want anything happening to the earth that is going to be destructive. And that's how they get us. Right. And so if you're looking into Agenda 2030, you'll see, and you probably have already heard, that you will own nothing and be happy. Now, there's nothing wrong with saying that, but did you ask anyone else? This is the MO of the United Nations. They're not going to ask you because that's not how they are built. So you're talking about immigration. Do you remember when Trump went off on the United Nations during his speech about how they're funding immigration? We have the documents to prove that. The things that are going on in California, as far as you have to register for your own well, we've got the documents for that. The global attack on our farmers, we have the documents for that. The war that's going on against the ranchers, we've got the documents for that. It's not really about this nation or that nation. It's a global conspiracy that is trying to choke the life out of freedom, choke the life out of these sovereign nations, especially the Confederation of Sovereign Republics called the United States of America. And that's the goal. Because as soon as you take the life out of America, where are people going to go? And where is freedom going to stand? But we're not going to allow that.
You know, when you were saying that, the the image that came to my mind, and of course, these goals are not instituted overnight. It's a slow, gradual process of brainwashing. We see that so much now. The ignorance of such a large percentage of the American population concerning the Constitution, concerning states' rights, concerning their rights. This recent, you know, King's protest, what a bunch of nonsense. But it goes with part of the ongoing, at least in my opinion, part of the ongoing brainwashing that Americans have been going through, and the rest of the world. But what specifically to what you were when you were saying that, I was thinking of Star Trek, because in Star Trek, property, uh, national pride are non-existent as far as I know. Uh, William Shatner, as Captain Kirk says, he's from Iowa. He recognizes the state of Iowa. That's about it. They talk about San Francisco, but there are no. It's sort of a conglomeration. There are no rights of the people. Those things aren't important in the 23rd century. You know, we've advanced beyond all that, and that is part of what is going on now. Now, I asked years ago when I was at this meeting in Reno about the United Nations, and I asked them, I said, well, how many congressmen do you have at this time that are on board with this? They had zero. I, I don't know. I almost want to say there's probably somebody now that would be on board. Do you know of anybody now in the Congress or either the House or the Senate that would be on board with getting the United States out of the United Nations?
I know for a fact that Chip Roy and Mike Lee, and there are others, right?
Yeah.
I know that there are state senators and also state representatives that are with it. I mean, even though it's the state, but of course there are those that are. If you look at it, Dave, you look at their constitutional voting record, and you'll see why they are either against us coming out of the United Nations or for us getting out of the United Nations. You know, somebody asked the question, CJ, how did you defund the United Nations? Well, since we're actually funding a large part of the United Nations, I would say that's a good start. Let's pull out.
Yeah.
Do you know
I,
what's in front of the building, the United Nations building? A big old emblem of disarmament. There's a gun with a barrel tied at the end. And that's what they want to do.
That's interesting. I have to look that up.
Mm.
Yeah, of course, you can't own guns. That won't work, at least in this country. Um, we see what's happened to other countries where they've given up their guns. But you mentioned congressmen and influence. Let me go ahead and sort of jump ahead. I want to show you this page from the New American Magazine. Now, the New American Magazine, just up front, is a publication of the John Birch Society. It's an absolutely fantastic magazine. But let me just pull this up here real quickly. And now we can see here, this was, I think, on today's headline or yesterday's. Trump endorses combat vet to unseat Rhino Tom Massey. Now, I'm surprised. I didn't think that Thomas Massey was a rhino, which means Republican in name only. But then again, maybe he is a rhino because he does not conform to the standard Republican position. He is probably, in my opinion, I'm not be glad to hear yours, that one of the, right now, probably the closest constitutionalist we have in the House of Representatives. And for whatever reason, our president, Mr. Trump, wants to get rid of him. I'd love for you to speak about that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that out. And that was brilliant how you did that, Dave. It really was. Because if you look at our country, okay, let's just look at it. We're supposed to have a Republican form of government, okay? But what do you hear on the news? We have to protect our democracy. Oh, they're trying to be a threat to our democracy. We do not have to protect our democracy. And we are trying to be a threat to democracy. Because do you know what democracy means?
It's
Tyranny
mob
by
rule
majority.
generally.
Yes, exactly. And so when you learn these things and really see what our nation is as a confederation of sovereign republics, you'll see that the state is actually more powerful than the federal government. And that's what
Oh,
Thomas Massey believes.
you're
Okay.
going to get in
And
trouble saying that?
that's why, yes, but
Oh,
that
my.
is what Thomas Massey believes. And he
Yes,
is a threat to
yes,
not only the establishment, he's a threat to the one worlders,
yes, he
okay,
is.
to those that are a part of the United Nations.
Yeah,
We're the original United Nations.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Each state, if you
That's
look at the
good.
word state, it means nation.
Right.
The founding fathers knew this. They knew this definition. And so we're actually, as the John Birch Society, making sure people know because knowledge is our only strategy and truth is our only weapon. Okay. So as you know these things, you'll start going to your legislator and you'll say, hey, did you know that the parent creates the child, not the other way around? What
Right.
happens when the child runs the house? What you see right now.
Exactly.
And so Thomas Massey knows that, and he wants to give more power to the states because it's inherent in the states.
Right.
Nobody took that power away. The state legislators can say no to the federal government. If it's illegal, any edicts come through, any mandates, all they have to say is, no, we're not doing that. You know what that's called? Nullification.
Yeah.
They can do that. And so
Now,
you're looking at why Trump wants to unseat him. That may be the reason why. He may not be part of the establishment, but perhaps there are some elements that he's ignorant of, right? I give people the benefit of the doubt, okay? He may be ignorant of these elements, and so we need to educate him. Let's educate our president so that he can say, hey, you know what? Wait a minute. I was going to unseat him, but now I know better. And as someone said, if you know better, you then have the responsibility to do better. So he's a threat. That's the reason why.
you're talking about states' rights. Um, I had an online conversation with a young man in his early 20s. I had made a comment about Governor Newsom complaining about President Trump sending troops into California, and even though I don't agree with Governor Newsom on probably most of his agendas, He was right into protest, in my opinion. And I called out for the fact that he was the sovereign head of his sovereign state, California, and I had a young man challenge me, "What in the world are you talking about?" And this young man was probably around 24, 25. He had no idea what I was talking about. State rights, state sovereignty.
Beautiful.
In his mind, the federal government was everything. And this young man comes from a good family. He should know better. I mean, I know his dad, I mean, I'm sort of surprised he was coming off that way. And that's not that he's stupid, he's just ignorant. But he's been
Right.
taught that somewhere, and I don't know where.
Yes.
But on your action project list, the top item is make America states again, and I think that sort of goes along with what you're talking about. Can you expand on that?
Absolutely. In making America states again, we have to empower our state legislators or make them aware that they have the power to say no to these federal government edicts, okay, that are illegal and are against the Constitution. A lot of them are like, well, we have to do it because, if not, we'll get in trouble. Well, according to what, right? Let's make sure that we know that as state legislators, we are not deep state puppets. That's the thing. Because the deep state knows that if you can puppetize the senators of these states and you can puppetize the representatives, then the United Nations will be talking instead of that state legislator that represents that state. And so
Yes.
we go around and we actually educate them. I have a great testimony actually of one of the representatives, and Selena Bliss, representing up there in Prescott District, and she didn't do too well. Let's say that on her scorecard, but we went in. That chapter leader up there, amazing. Just laid it out, shared with her thoughts, along with her wonderful team. And Selena was there, and she looked at it. She learned, Dave. And next thing you know, she got an 87% on her scorecard. That's what it's all about. We don't discriminate whether you're Republican, whether you're Democrat, whether you're Libertarian. We don't play those games because we know that's what the puppet masters want us to do: divide and claw at each other. And you're a Republican and you're a Democrat. It's not about that. It's about, let's make sure that this document forged years ago can continue on, right? And let's enforce what's already been written.
You mentioned I think the phrase you just used was puppetized the Senate.
Puppetize. Yeah.
And I want to say that the 17th Amendment did that already.
Mm,
So
that's right.
I Mr. There was a photo online of both Thomas Massey and Rand Paul out visiting. And by the way, I'm from Kentucky, so I have one of Mr.
Love
Massey's
Kentucky.
campaign, one of his lawn plastic, those campaign signs hanging in my other room. Uh, but they were out shaking hands and hobnobbing with whatever group of business leaders someplace in Kentucky, probably in Massey's district, I would guess. And I posted the question, why is Rand there? Shouldn't he be visiting the state legislature instead? And that just goes over the head. Nope, nobody understands that because of the 17th Amendment. The senators no longer do what their constitutional duty is, which is to answer to the states because the states lost all their power over them when they passed the 17th Amendment. That's a different discussion some other time, but it's
No, that's very powerful, though.
very dangerous amendment.
Yes, it
So,
is.
yeah. Um, you say on here the next action project is stop. I thought we wanted one of these. Stop a constitutional convention. Why don't we need to get one of those so we can get together and hammer out all these issues and problems and straighten out the mistakes of the Constitution and make it right?
The mistakes in the Constitution to make it right. I tell you what, this is an area that a lot of people, boy, let me tell you, they are very contentious over. But regardless of your position or whether you're for it, whether you're against it, the main element of the whole Convention of States or Constitutional Convention is why are people asking more questions? When you go and maybe you are a realtor or maybe a real estate investor and you do your due diligence, why isn't that having uh, any impact on our Convention of States folks? Why don't they ask more questions? Right? It's just something that I think people should look more into. Um, as far as who funds some of these campaigns for the Convention of States as well. I mean, you can't really pinpoint where some of the money is coming from. We actually have receipts of where some of the money is coming from, and it's very questionable. But why is it that they would choose to have a constitutional convention when not everybody is constitutional? Now, it's one thing if you had 100% across the board, Democrats, Republicans, they voted constitutionally. But for the most part, people don't vote. The legislators don't vote constitutionally. So you would open this document up to interpretation, to amendments, to changes before people who don't even know what the Constitution said. Some of them don't even know what the Constitution says or what it means. And some don't even believe in the Constitution. It's not even a subject. And so the question then becomes, hey, regardless of if you're for it or against it, why would you open that document up to these type of people? And that's actually what Glenn Beck said. He was actually for the Convention of States, but then he started thinking about it, and he said he even prayed about it. And I've got the clip if you need it. He said, "I can't allow myself to give up these freedoms, especially when you have these type of people in office. I just can't open that document up to these type of people." And that's what the crux of his
Right,
conversation was.
right. That's exactly right. It would be very dangerous. It would be changed radically, unfortunately,
Yes,
partly because of the ignorance of the American people and the apathy. Most
right.
people just don't care. You mentioned this talking about a representative up in the Prescott area, I believe, about her scorecard. I want to bring up
Yes,
right now the uh, the page off the website. Let me bring this up. This is absolutely, without a doubt, the most powerful tool that the John Birch Society has been involved with for decades. I remember because, well, I guess because I'm old. I remember back when you could go into a business and find the scorecard printed out on paper, and you could pick it up at local businesses that supported the John Birch Society and supported educating people. Folks, if you ever wonder, now the only problem I have with the website is it's limited. You can't go back very far for historical purposes. But for the last few recent Congresses, anybody in the House or the Senate, you can go in, type in their name, find their voting record, and it will amaze you. And of course, the criteria has always been uh, based on the Constitution, whether the legislation was constitutional or not. At least that's my interpretation of it. So it's a wonderful website. I recommend it to everyone to use it. It's free. It's helpful. It's educational, and it really helps you see. I uh, I'm gonna make a mistake here. I think, but I think was it what Congress was it where Tulsi Gabbard and AOC were in at the same time, And AOC actually had a higher score than Tulsi Gabbard. Look it up, folks. You can look it up. AOC had a higher score than Tulsi Gabbard.
Wow.
We're not here to talk about Tulsi Gabbard. She was a Democrat. I don't know what she is now. She's working, we know that, but I don't know anything about her. But anyway, but you can find this stuff out. You want to find out how your representative is voting. The higher the number, the better. I think Mr. Massey has in the high 90s. He's not perfect. I'm sure that
Eh,
CJ would agree with me that we all wish that Ron Paul was 30 years younger and back in Congress. He would be
Ooh-wee.
a very strong help to Mr. Massey. We need about 10 Masseys. If we had about 10
Yes,
Masseys in the House, we could stop a lot of the abuse and maybe turn some things around. It's difficult, almost impossible
absolutely.
with one voice. It just can't be done. Even two, three, you need more than that. But we're thankful
Yeah.
that they're there. So, but I wanted to share with you that website. Now, going back through the list, uh, let's see, we're into this over 30 minutes. I don't want to take you all day. Let me just see what else on the list is. I want to get your opinion on. Um, well, you got some good ones here. Expose the deep state. Now, how is the Birch Society doing that? I mean, it's now. I have to say this. I think more people today are are aware of a deep state. They might not know what it is and who it is. I'm not sure that I even know who it is exactly, but they are aware of the term and the dangers to our republic. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. So, how to expose the deep state is to simply look at what they're doing. It's beautiful when you don't have to make up stuff. You remember when you were little, and if your mom was like, "Hey, did you stick your hand in the cookie jar?" You were like, no," because you weren't supposed to, right? But then she would ask you later on, and you would tell on yourself or during conversation. All we do is we have people go into the United Nations, let's say, and they look at what they say, and by their own tongue, they hang themselves, right? We talked about the fact that Klaus Schwab, you and I both know, he said, "You will own nothing and be happy." Right? These are things that you don't have to work that hard to do. You just got to listen to them. Case in point,
Yeah.
public schools, right? The things that are going on right now, believe it or not, were planned years ago. But Robert Owen, Horace Mann, and John Dewey knew this, that at that time, they couldn't bring it out because it would be an uprising. So they designed the dumbing down of America so that they could bring these type of things in, whether it's people that shouldn't be reading to children, reading to them, certain things taught during sex ed. All of this was planned way back. This was not a new thing. And it's all a part of the global conspiracy. It's interesting that conspiracy is mentioned 10 times in the Bible. And every time it's mentioned, it's associated with a crime. And so conspiracies are real. And that is what it is. All it means is one spirit, right? One breath. These two or more factors or people working together for a nefarious cause. This happened in high school, universities, work. Do people conspire against you? Yes. Why can't it happen on a global scale? It is. But how do we stop it? Education. That's the total strategy.
Yeah, that's a. I have a book on my shelf entitled "Change Agents in the Schools." Can't remember the author's name. So it's a woman, Brilliant book. It's probably at least 25 years old, talking about the unions, the NEA, the danger, the plan goes along with what you're saying. As long as you have unions in schools, personally, I think government schools should be eradicated. That's just me. So we
Yes.
need to open up freedom of choice in schools, get the
Mhm.
government out of. Well, we can talk about getting the government out of a lot of things. I think we probably
Yes.
agree on that. But
Yes.
um, wow, that's
But look how
powerful
it
stuff.
operated before the government.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Look at how education was before the government.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, you had things like back in the 1700s, these, what was it, 8, 9 year olds pronouncing anti disestablishmentarianism, knowing how to spell it, knowing what politics was. And just, it was very, we were a very brilliant country.
Well,
And it was a
you, you,
designed dumbing down.
you go back to, let's just say 1900, and take a standardization test in the schools in 1900 and what they talked about. I've read some of that stuff. I have no idea what they're talking about.
Wow.
The education back then was so powerful. And you mentioned going back, and just funny, I watched a clip on, I don't know if it was on Facebook. It probably was on Facebook, one of those shorts, showing when they blew up the the buildings on the set for Little House on the Prairie, and they had to because the land was leased. And when the series was over, they had to destroy the buildings anyway. So Michael Landon directed the last episode, and that part of that is they had a story about land grabbers or something. So they blew up all the buildings, and of course the cast was there, and they were weeping about it. They had worked there for years. But you're saying what you just said. I think of the one-room schoolhouse in Little House on the Prairie. One teacher, multiple ages. Those kids got a better education than any child in America in a grade school today. I have no doubt about it. And
Right.
there was no government involved.
Exactly. But when you
So,
have agents, right, that come in and persuade these legislators, persuade our government, certain elements in our government, so that those people that are in our government and have compromised our freedom, they're the agents that they use, which is sad because you look at what a person was put on the planet for, and they have their own gifts, they have their own talents, and it's like they're not allowed to be themselves. That's the sad part about it.
hmm,
You think that money is the answer. You think that prestige or power, whatever it is that they sell out their own country for, it
yeah,
really is sad because they could be better.
yeah. I went, um, I went home from a few years ago for my high school reunion, and I had not been back to the school building that I went to the sixth grade in. First grade through fifth grade was a school building in town, small town, Kentucky, and they built schools around the outskirts of the town to split up the population. And I, on the sixth grade, went to the first year of the new school. It's called Northside Elementary. So a few years ago, I was home. I had never been in that building since the day I left it at the end of the sixth grade. Okay. So quite a lot of time has elapsed. I was able to get in. There was no school in session, but I was able to get in and just walk around at my leisure pace. And I went into the same classroom that I used. And I walked around and looked at the other classrooms. And I think this has some bearing to what you're saying. I'm not sure, but I think it does. I couldn't believe the amount of what I would consider garbage, uh, teaching aids, all this stuff that these classrooms were filled with. I'm like, we never had anything like that. We had a short lady teacher that you were scared to death of, And she had a paddle at her desk that she would use on you if you needed it. And she had a blackboard and a piece of chalk,
Yes.
and we had books. And as far as I can remember, that was all we had. And that's how we got our
Yes.
education. We didn't need all these other things. You know, that's
Right.
why they're always, we need more money. We need that. We need, no, you need to teach, you know, and they don't do it anymore. Anyway, it's a
That's
tragic
right.
event. It really is. It really is tragic. We've lost
You know,
probably multiple generations of our youth because of the corruption of the education system.
absolutely. And the enemy knows that you can help a person to death. You can help a person to ignorance
Hmm.
because you need muscles in order to move. But if your muscles atrophy, soon you won't move.
Yeah,
So let me help you here. Let me help you there.
right.
Right?
That's good. It's true. I see what I see your point. Yeah. Um, we're just not the same, and it's not going to get any better. It
That's
really
right.
won't. CJ, I have taken your time. We're in about 46 minutes now. Let me just ask you in closing, what what does the John Birch Society, and yourself included, um, think in the United States right now are the most perilous things that you see involving the federal government?
You know, David, immediately my mind goes to endless wars
Hmm.
and lying to people about what's really going on, not really being transparent with it. Why do I say that? Well, because of how it affects people. Some people, they have real bad anxiety. And when they hear the news about war, boy, not only do the stocks start being volatile, right? Going up, maybe down, but the people, it seems like it reflects that news. Their attitudes reflect the news of war. But I would think the most sinister thing that is being foisted upon us is really, yeah, it would have to be people believing. So let's not, blame it on the government. People believing what they've always believed without looking further. I think
Hmm.
that is the most sinister because it's okay if someone, lies or even tells the truth to you, but what are you going to believe? Right? It's we the people of the United States. That's where it is. And we need to stop believing just willy-nilly anything someone tells us. Everything that I've said, you can look up. Matter of fact, I love what Julie Brown says. She actually should have been more popular than Martin King. Julie Brown was during the Civil Rights era, and she was actually the John Birch Society member. And boy, she was just a fireball. And she had the same mentality. Let's start exposing some of this fraud that's being hoisted upon the people, because as soon as we start exposing that, we can eradicate and break the backbone of the conspiracy that's being foisted upon us.
You, yeah, it's the more you talk, things come into my head as examples. I saw an example the other day. A gentleman that I know that, in fact, he used to be. I don't know if he was stationed at Fort Huachuca, but he did live in Sierra Vista. That's where I first met him. But he now lives in another state. But he was in the army. He had something to do with helicopters. I believe he was in Iraq, and he had posted a memorial about two fellow soldiers that were killed in a helicopter in Iraq. And I asked a question about it. I said, I'm sure you knew these men, and I'm so sorry. And I made the comment, little cold, no doubt. I said, it's tragic to me when good men are just thrown away like that. Now, somebody wrote a comment about that saying they weren't thrown away and they were serving their country. And I'm like, I'm not going to get into this because we all know they weren't serving their country. They
right,
were serving the political whims of George Bush and maybe others that were involved for a particular reason, had nothing to do with protecting America. In that sense, their lives were thrown away. I never said they didn't do their duty. They did, I'm sure. But people believe that. It's part of the it's the part of the babble, and it goes on, the psychobabble that we get. And I did talk to a young man once years ago. He was an Iraq veteran, and he had a job as a security guard outside a local bank branch here. And we were talking about it and talking like we're talking now. And he finally did admit to me that, yeah, we weren't there fighting for America. He finally admitted that. That was so rare for a
wow,
soldier to do that, an ex-soldier to do that. Now, by the way, I'm an Air Force veteran. I'm fortunate I never got involved in any kind of foreign conflicts. I was sort of in between everything, but we've got that mindset. It's just it has to be corrected. But you know this as well as I. If you call it out in a public venue, you will be attacked.
that's right,
Right?
that's right. And if you call it out in a public venue that doesn't know what's going on, more and more people are starting to question, which is great news.
Yes.
But you are exactly right, man. You go out into a public venue just anywhere, you definitely, put yourself in some danger. People
You
may be like,
do.
"Hey, I've got a word with you. Why did you say that?" Different things.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Any
but you're
closing
looking at,
thoughts, CJ?
yes. Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for this time, Dave. I wanted to share a word about the Council of Foreign Relations and what exactly they are. People may ask the question, well, what's so bad about the Council of Foreign Relations? Well, aside from the fact they want to sap the sovereignty out of the United States of America and a myriad of other things that they've been involved in, I would think the most heinous of what they do is convince our government that they're a good thing.
Hmm.
So anybody who is in the legislature and anyone who's thinking about running for government office, I would just implore you, do not join the Council of Foreign Relations. They are against, and we don't have time to go through it all, but they are against the sovereignty that the United States
Right.
of America has. The CFR is the power behind the throne. You wonder why, how did Biden do all these things? You wonder why, oh man, Trump, why is he doing this? Why is he doing that? The CFR is the power behind it.
How many? I don't know if you know the answer to this, but of the current Congress we have now, how many are involved? Do you think directly with the CFR, percentage wise?
Every
10%, 20%, 30%.
every one of them, and I can almost guarantee it, I'm not going to guarantee it, every one of them that has a constitutional voting record of a D or a F, so maybe a 69, right, or a zero,
Mm-hmm.
they're in some way, shape, or form a part of the Council of Foreign Relations. How can I say that? Because they're going to be by their plan. Because if you're not voting constitutionally, then you're for the other guys, right? If you're not for the US Constitution, then you are for the United Nations Charter, plain and simple,
Right. Right.
regardless of if they have a membership there or not. What we see, and people are starting to look at this, the rhetoric versus the record. Now people are saying, I don't care about how you look. I don't care about your rhetoric. I want to see what you're walking. What's your record like? And that's what they're going by now. And as we continue this campaign, we have a huge campaign going on in Arizona, California, Montana. We're bringing the scorecards out to people, and they are making the decisions to vote for the right ones based off of that.
Mm,
That's the goal.
that's good. Yeah, the scorecard is fabulous. Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. Just can't recommend it enough. and to make it now. Fortunately, my congressman is Andy Biggs. He's fairly good. He's not a
Yes.
Thomas Massey. He's not a
Yes.
Ron Paul, but
Yes. He's good.
he's better than average. And
Yes.
so, he's running for governor now. We'll see how
Yes.
that goes.
We call him Governor Biggs down here already. I
You
mean,
already call him Governor Biggs, huh?
we're already calling him Governor Biggs. Yes.
Okay, so it's going to be interesting to see. Speaking of that, boy, we could extend this forever. We got in the mail the other day absentee ballots. I got one
Whoa.
for a child that no longer lives here. And I know
Really?
others that have had the same thing. They'll get a slew of absentee ballots for people who don't even live there, don't even live in the state.
Wow.
And you want fair elections. I don't
Right.
know. I don't
Right.
know. I don't have an
Wow.
answer for that. I don't know. It's so corrupt. Everything's so corrupt.
Yeah,
CJ,
I
I
would say I'm
appreciate you.
surprised, but
I'm
I'm
sorry.
not.
Go ahead.
I
Go
would
ahead.
say I'm surprised, but I'm not.
Yeah, it's 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 tragic. It really is. But CJ, thank you so much for you taking your time today to spend with us, and it's been great. And thank you so much. Maybe in the future we could have you back again. Who knows?
Absolutely. Thank
Okay.
you so much for
All
having me
right.
on, Dave. I enjoyed it very much.
Thank you, sir. You take care.
All
Folks,
right, you
thanks
too.
again for watching The Third Rail. And stay tuned. Make sure to like and subscribe for more in the future.